In this video we're going to find out how to make a very simple stores search using a batch file. Why would you use a batch file for a stores search? Well, you might not be able to afford a more expensive bit of dedicated software. You might want something that's free. You might want something that's very simple because you trust the people who are using it. It's very simple to code. It's easy to use and maintain, and it can be developed with more functions in. So let's get right into it. So this is a very simple store search with a very simple menu system. So you can see that it's store search. So it works on the idea that you create a text file of a parts list, and then you can search the text file so that the user isn't going directly into the parts list. So if we enter item 3, we can see the parts list here. So we can see that it's 3 columns: ID, description and location. So the ID of the part is it could be anything, but I've just put 001, 002, 003, 004, and you can see that item 004 is a blue hook and it's in location T68. Item 002 is a black hook and it's in location T66. Now then, if you can imagine for a second that there are thousands of items in this inventory, trying to go into this with a simple search, trying to do a simple Control F. So if we do Control F and we go say hook, find next, yeah, can you see the problem here, that we would, if they were all spread out, then we would have a problem if there was thousands and thousands of entries, which the command line is very easily able to handle. So if we close that for a second, we just pull that like that. So that's our parts list. And we go over here and we say, right, okay, find parts, basic. So if we go to, so search for keyword, let's say red. And it tells us that we've got, so all this is doing is just simply finding the line or lines that have got the word red in, and then it's returning it. It's a very simple form of retrieval. It retrieves whatever line it finds. So if we put hook, then you can see that it brings back everything with the word hook in it. Okay. Now then, we've got a second option for finding parts, and it's formatted. So if we go to, and we go keyword hook, we can see that we've got a more pleasant looking search results. So you can see the difference between it's taken the data that was in here and it's formatted it so that it looks like a table of data. Yeah, and all the spaces have been taken up by these small dots, so it looks more pleasant. The appearance is better, and it's easier to sort of decode it, what it means. So how we've done that, so let's have a look at the code behind it. So if we go to option 10 in here, this is the option I always put in my my menus. So option 10, and that opens the text file. Of course, if you had this on a public PC in a business, in a firm, in a factory, in a office, you wouldn't have option 10 because you wouldn't want people going into the code behind it, because they could change stuff, and you don't want that. So what's in the code? So start off with at echo off, because we don't want it echoing all over the place. We don't want the code telling us what it's doing as it's doing it. Color, I've just set the color so that it's a black background and it's white text. set local enable delayed expansion. And if you're not familiar with this one here, so what we do is we set local enable delayed expansion so that we can make the when we're going through a for loop, we can make it take each value of the for loop and process that one at a time, rather than processing just the last one. It'll make sense in a second. So the main menu is option 0. Always goes back to option 0. We clear the screen, then we create a bunch of text that we want to appear on the screen, and then we ask the user, what option do you want to choose? And then when the users put an option in, you just go to the option. So if the user puts in 1, then you go to option 1. Option 1 is search for parts basic. So it asks you to search for a keyword. So set P is set prompt, and I've set a variable called KW. And the keyword goes into the variable called KW. And then I'm using the find string function with an option for ignore case. So find string /i means just ignore case. So ignore if so the word hook. So we could put capital HOOK and it would still find the word hook, even though the word hook in the listing is lowercase. Okay, so that's why we put the /i in. So we'll find string whatever the keyword is in a text file called 0789.txt, which is what that's called, 0789.txt. Now then, that's the straightforward one, where it just returns the value. Option 2 is the slightly more complicated one, if you remember. So we'll go through this one as well. So again, we ask for a keyword, and we store the keyword in the variable KW, and then we output the beginning of the display, which is just the titles of the table, and then we look through the text file 0789.txt for that keyword. Now then, what we're doing here is we're going to take this quite slowly. So for this one whole section here, you can see that we've got a for statement that is for, and it takes us through each line in the text file. The tokens, think of the tokens as columns. So we've got 3 columns, 1, 2, 3. Tokens 1 to 3, and delims equals, and that's a semicolon. Delims are delimiters, and delimiters is just a fancy name for whatever character you're using to separate the columns. So one of the most famous delimiters is the comma, which is why we have CSV files. So that's a comma delimited file. Comma separated values for CSV. Yeah. So then we're going to call the first value from the delimited data. We're going to call that A. We're going to look in 0789, and once we've found the values that match KW, we are going to take the description in column B. So if we go back, so once it finds any values, that is going to be column A, that is going to be column B, and that's going to be column C, that one there. So we're looking in column B, and what we're going to do is we're going to add lots of dots onto the end of the the value in column B. Why are we doing that? Well, because we want to pad it out. We want to pad it out so that it is a set length, and we want the set length to be 30. So if we set the description, and we're going to make set the description to equal whatever's in column B plus an awful lot of dots, and then we rewrite it again to description DESC equals description, and we're going to start at 0.0. This is a way of parsing the variable, so we're taking the variable called DESC description. We're going to start at 0, and we're going to take the first 30 characters from that variable. So effectively what we're doing is we're taking whatever's in column B, and we're taking the first 30 dots. We could have the dots going all the way off the side of the page, all over here. It doesn't really matter, as long as we've got enough to make 30 characters. And then we're going to output the value of column A, which is the part number, and we're going to put the modified description that's going to have lots of dots in it, and then we're going to put the location, which is in column C. When we're finished doing that, we're going to do an echo statement, so we could put a little space at the end. We're going to pause so that the user can see the results, because if you don't put a pause statement in, the user won't be able to see the results. It'll just go back to the menu, because it'll go back to menu. It'll go to 0, which is effectively go back to menu. So let's see how that works in action. So statement 2, we'll put hook, and we can see that all these dots here are what we've added in this step here, and that's about as complicated as it gets. The rest of it is just the statements for adding, for opening the text file with all the part numbers in. Start notepad, and that's the name, but that could be called inventory.txt, or it could be called spareparts.txt. I just prefer to use numbers because it makes more sense in my head. Option 9 is just exit, and option 10 is start notepad, and this variable here is the standard variable for the file name that is currently you're working on. And the function section is just where I put my spare functions that I want to refer to, but I don't have any in this bit of code, so I've left that one blank. So that's that. So if you can imagine, that is like thousands of lines long, then we would obviously be able to define things a lot simpler. Maybe at some point I'll modify this so that I can have an option for booking items in, booking items out, and then checking how much stock we have, because that would be a fun little exercise. So maybe I'll do that at some point in the future. But for now, hopefully that's helped, and hopefully it's showed you how to create like a little store search if you wanted to, if that was your thing, even just as a fun exercise. Okay, well, thanks for watching.